Nebraska's 2024 season is over, and so to kick off the offseason, we're going to do a year in review, position by position, obviously starting with the quarterback position today. So, we'll dive into it. For the first time in a good while, Nebraska had the same quarterback start every single game this year and finish out every single game um, this season. A healthy year at the position as freshman five-star or former five-star Dylan Raiola came to Nebraska, had a very strong start to the year, kind of tapered off here at points in between the season. And then, the Dana Holgerson came in, kind of helped him revitalize a little bit, catch some of that spark again, and get back to the form that we're used to seeing from Raiola. And he ended the year, I think, on a strong note. Thought he had a pretty strong end to the season. Kind of turnovers aside. So we'll kind of dive into Dylan. We'll dive into the room behind him, what the future of the room looks like as Nebraska's, seeing Heinrich Harberg transition to tight end. They've added Marcus Davila out of the transfer portal, TJ Lateef from the high school ranks. We've seen Daniel Kalen enter the transfer portal and is off to Virginia. Jalen Gramstead, is working on potentially getting one more year of eligibility back, which would give Nebraska just a valuable depth piece in the room. But Steve, we'll start with Dylan. Um, Before the year, obviously all this hype around, five-star quarterback, legacy quarterback, came into this program with the hopes of revitalizing them. He led them to their first bowl game in since 2016, first bowl game win since 2015. But all things considered, kind of how would you grade or assess the year Dylan Raiola had?
Well, when I think about that, I think about, what everybody was talking about, what I was thinking before this season, before he even took his first snap against UTEP was, the talk was, hey, he's going to be a true freshman. There's going to be some good moments because he's a good quarterback, but there's also going to be some bad moments because he's literally playing college football for the first time in his life. And we saw that play out right in front of our eyes. There's a lot of ups and there's a lot of downs, but in the end, I think you have to really like the flashes that you saw, and sometimes that could really consistently good play. I really like what you mentioned, Tim, about with Dan Holgerson, his addition to the program when that was made after that UCLA loss. I think that kind of calmed Dylan down a little bit. The simplified offense really helped him and helped him do some good things. So he finished the season completing 67% of his passes. You take that all like every single day for a true freshman quarterback playing college football for the first time. He ends his year with 2,819 passing yards. That's a record for a true freshman. For freshmen at quarterbacks at Nebraska, he threw 13 touchdowns, 11 interceptions. So you'd like to see that number drop a little bit. But yeah, all in all, I think, you know, going into the season, we all kind of assumed that there was going to be some ups and downs, and there were, but I think he finished the season strong. Obviously, there are some things to work on. Learning to slide is one, and when to slide, when to start hit the process of the slide when he's so close to the first down marker. But that will come with experience. And the deep ball. The deep ball is something that, when he committed, when he committed to Nebraska, when he flipped from Georgia, everybody was kind of watching his tape, and that deep ball was beautiful at Buford. It was really, really good. He was bombing those things down the field and right into the receiver's hands, but that didn't really translate at Nebraska this season, I don't think. So that's those are the two things: his ability to slide and his awareness of when to do it, how to protect himself from the defenders. Because at times, and I think we even saw it at the Boston College bowl game, the Pinstripe Bowl, he slid late, and that resulted in him taking kind of a big shot. And now he got up and he got in the face of the kid. I love that about him. I love that he got up and showed the fire and showed like, hey, you're not just going to do that to me. But at the end of the day, he slid late, and when you slide late, you open yourself up to those types of hits and those types of moments. Learning to slide, being more aware of how to slide and when to do it is one thing that I would like to see some improvement on. And then the deep ball, just to complete a higher percentage of those deep balls, because at times it wasn't really good this season. He missed some throws that could have made major differences in a few games. He missed Luke Lindemeyer, I remember, in the Illinois game, that would have made a big difference. He missed Jamal Banks in a slot fade at Ohio State. That would have made a big difference. He missed some others that would have made a big difference. But again, it's hard to nitpick this kid. He's a really good quarterback. He's the future of the program. You just take what you get from him as a true freshman. The sky is really high. The ceiling is really high with Dylan Raiola. So I really liked what he showed as a true freshman. What about
For sure.
you?
I think when you zoom out and you look at the year in total, you like the flashes. And again, we knew there were going to be freshman lumps. Again, for some, maybe more than some expected. For me, I think what's interesting is the turnover number and the deep ball thing, the deep ball accuracy, because those are two things that hasn't really been in his game. And he had a unique high school journey where he moved multiple high schools. So the situation wasn't the same for him all 4 years. And when you see someone that's moving situations constantly, the fact that the deep ball accuracy was as consistent as it was from like I'm talking dating back to freshman year at Burleson in Texas, to Chandler, Arizona, to Buford, Georgia, across three different pass catching units, vastly different units, by the way. The unit at Burleson, it was him kind of carrying an offense in totality. Kind of it's him and a bunch of guys. And then at Chandler, he had a little more support. And then at Buford, he's throwing a 5-star KJ Bolden, 4-star Jordan Allen. He's got weapons all over. Um, the deep ball was always there. The deep ball was accurate. And the other thing, he was never turnover prone. Like that was never something that was in his game. So and you look at if you want to nitpick and look at the interceptions this year, there's a couple to where it's kind of 50-50 balls that were either ripped out of the receiver's
Yeah.
hands, or he let the ball float a second too long, or it was a wrong read. I distinctly remember the RPO that got picked off
At
um,
Rutgers or
at
versus
Rutgers.
Rutgers.
Yeah,
Yeah, that was the
and
one
and
that like started the downhill slide with him. That pick against Rutgers.
yeah, and I think again, now that we know what we know, Dana Holgerson, how much easier and how much pressure it felt like it took off Dylan's shoulder when Dana Holgerson took over. I think if you ask Matt Rule and you ask the staff in retrospect, they probably don't put as much on Dylan entering the
Hmm.
year as they did. They talked all spring about, hey, and Dana said it as well. Mentally, this kid is further advanced, and Raul is further advanced than most freshman quarterbacks, most quarterbacks in general. That comes with having a dad that was an All-Pro center, a Hall of Fame center. That comes with just his knowledge of the game and how much time he spends in the film room, in the playbook. But you have to save a freshman from themselves in a way. And I think Nebraska early on the plan was, hey, we're going to give him an NFL offense where he has the ability at the line to flip protections and call audibles and do all these things. That's far, far too much. I felt like at times to put on him, and we saw the impact when his game started to crumble a little bit in the middle stretch of the season. It just felt like there was too much going on around him. He's trying to keep the line up front in check. He's trying to make something out of nothing at times with the receiver room, and it didn't help. The receiver room got better as the year went on, but it didn't help at parts of this year where the receivers couldn't perimeter block. And so, some of the short game that Nebraska wanted to rely on wasn't really effective. And then they couldn't get off press. And then they couldn't separate downfield. That all factors into the deep ball issues. That all factors into some of the struggles we saw this year. But at the end of the day, I think in retrospect, I think Nebraska would have liked to, in retrospect, probably wouldn't have put as much on his plate as they did to start the season. And knowing what they know now, I think all of these experiences are beneficial for him going into year two, because he got to see a bunch of different looks from a bunch of very good defenses. He got to play against some of the top defensive backs and linebackers and defensive linemen in the country, and really got just thrown into the fire essentially. And I think all of that will make him better in the long term.
Yeah, agree with all that. What about behind him? What's that battle for QB2 look like? Because I think there's two names right now that stand out, and that's TJ Lateef, the true freshman quarterback. He'll be a true freshman. The 4-star quarterback in the 2025 class, and then Marcos Devia, the transfer that they took from Purdue, came from an air raid background back in Texas. So, Tim, you know about Marcos Devia. So, what about the QB2 role at Nebraska next season? How's that shaping up?
I'll keep a close eye on that during spring ball.
Yeah.
That battle is going to
Hmm.
be a lot of fun, and I don't think you can
Hmm.
count out Jalen Gramstead either if he does get that
Hmm.
another year of eligibility just with his experience.
Hmm.
But you look at those two guys. Marcos is feels to me like the perfect Dylan Raiola backup. Similar build, similar frame. The best traits are similar. Marcus is a guy that can just chuck it all over the field. There's no shortage of arm strength there. A guy that was pursued by Dana Holgerson, and practically every coach that runs a version of the air raid essentially was after Davila just because of they recognize what he can do. in that offense, what that arm can do. I think right now you have to say Marcus is the favorite for the QB2 role. But I'm really interested to see how quickly TJ Lateef picks up the playbook because
Yeah.
TJ had a very good senior year. Quiet as it's kept. I think it kind of went quiet just because he was committed and there was no real drama in that recruitment late. He just kind of stuck with his commitment to Nebraska, was an active peer recruiter, helped get Cortez Mills in the room, worked on Isaiah Mosey, has been working with some of these transfers as well. And he played like tough competition as a senior. Obviously
Hmm.
playing in the Trinity League, one of the considered the toughest district, toughest league of high school football in the country. Playing against a Mater Day, and it's not just who he played in the league. He played Mater Day, played St. John Bosco, Servite, three of the best teams in the country. But they also played a national schedule. They went and played St. Francis Academy. One of the best, powerhouse program on the East Coast. They went and played Bishop Gorman, Nevada state champions. Are loaded with talent, and he held up. He had a really good year, kept the ball out of harm's way, was effective delivering the ball, showed he can create out of structure if needed. Again, Dylan Raiola is the future of this program and expected to be the starting quarterback for the next 2+ seasons. But right behind him, Nebraska's built out a room that if something were to happen, they're ready to go. I think though both those guys in Dana Holgerson's offense can be highly, highly effective.
So far we've mentioned Dylan Raiola, we've mentioned Marcos Davia, we've mentioned TJ Lateef, through good call by you, Jalen Gramstad, because he might have another year available to him. So what my next question, Tim, all four of those guys, not big run threats. And as we've seen in college football, having a run threat at quarterback is important. You could do a lot more. You could do a lot more when you have that available to you. But Heinrich Harberg. Heinrich Harberg is making the transition fully to the hybrid tight end / receiver. We saw him do his thing against Boston College in the Pinstripe Bowl. He looked pretty dang good doing it. But do you think there's still a possibility that he could be taking snaps whenever there's a certain situation out there that would call for a 6'5", 230+ pound athlete to get the ball in his hands and do stuff?
Yeah, kind of like I touched on in our last Nebraska football show episode. I think Nebraska should be watching the Tyler Warren film from
Yeah.
2024 and use that as a game plan for what to do with Heinrich Harburg in 2025. Because Warren was a guy that lined up all over the field, was essentially a jumbo weapon for Penn State's
Mm-hmm.
offense, and a guy that took some snaps, out of again technically wildcat for them because he's not a quarterback. But yeah, I think we see a package with Heinrich just because he's an effective runner, and it wasn't always there for him this year. And I felt like I think
Mm-hmm.
Nebraska did a little every time they tried that. It felt very on the nose, and like everyone knows what's happening when Heinrich Harburg lines up at quarterback. Better blocking, another year of that, another year of and having Dana Holgerson kind of work his magic in scheming that up too. I think will all be beneficial for him. Yeah, I think there's going to be an element of Heinrich Harburg involved in the QB run game, just because I think Nebraska needs it, especially in this conference.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally agree. I definitely absolutely 100% think that Nebraska should have a Heinrich Harburg package. We know he's going to be a skill player from now on, and that's exciting. Just because of his size, his combination of size and speed and pass catching ability, he looked really natural doing that too. He's just a really good athlete, and he can do several things, and potentially has a professional career in the NFL if things continue to develop like they are. Rounding out the room, Tim. So right now, and again, with the 105-man roster limit coming, the cuts are going to have to be made for some guys, but walk-on wise with the quarterback room, you have guys like Luke Longvall, Bodie Sukup. They're local guys around the area. Who knows what the future holds with those guys? It's kind of hard to predict some of this stuff just to see how it all shakes out. But do you see anything with Luke Longvall or Bodie Sukup next year in the quarterback room?
I kind of wonder if they keep four on the roster just to be
Yep.
safe. Four
Yep.
total. Like when you allocating spots in the 105, I wonder if they carve it out where there's a fourth quarterback in there, just because you never know. And again, like Nebraska
Mm-hmm.
was lucky this year to kind of get through a full year where they had the same starting quarterback all year. But we've seen in years past where it's down to Tommy Armstrong's hurt, and it's Ron Kellogg, and it's Riker. Like we've seen
Yep.
where Nebraska's had to go to QB3 and even QB4 at times. I don't think they want to be caught in that situation. And even with some of the additions, you kind of wonder. Okay, we talked about Dylan at the top, that competition between TJ. If Gramstead has another year, I think that
Graham's
also
too is a big one. Yeah.
What happens with Gramstead, I think, will
Hmm.
affect what they do because I think you feel comfortable with the room that is Dylan, Gramstead, TJ Latif, Marcus Davila, and then you have that fifth flex spot in for Heinrich
Hmm.
Harberg.
Hmm.
I think if that's the room, you feel good with it. If Gramstead is done and out of eligibility and kind of transitions into that coaching role that the staff talked about,
Hmm.
do they keep a Luke Longvall? Do they potentially pursue someone out of the JUCO ranks? Do they keep just a warm arm in there, like a capable body in there? We'll see.
Hmm.
I think that's something that's going to have to get figured out, but I think we'll have an answer on Gramstead in the foreseeable future, just because I think Nebraska would like to have that clarity as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's just kind of difficult to talk about some of this stuff, which has been right now where there's so much change in college football and how it operates. And with the 105-man rule coming into effect pretty soon here, it's just going to be a wild sort of deal trying to keep all of this, organized and everything. So we'll keep it all in front of us and paying attention to that. But yeah, you mentioned all those names in the quarterback room, Tim. I really like the look of it. I really do. I know Marcos Davia doesn't have a lot of experience in college. Neither does TJ Latif, but you watch their highlights, what they have put on tape in the high school ranks, and especially with Davia. I'm really interested in him because of what it means with Daniel Holgerson. He recruited him, and other air raid disciples have recruited Davila too. So that really piques my interest with what he could develop into, and of course his size. I mean, you know Tim, he's a tank. You've called him a tank before. He could stand in the pocket and sling that football. And that with the talent that Nebraska is going to be accumulating in the skill positions at the receiver, the tight end, the running back spots, you need a strong armed quarterback to stand in the pocket and deliver the football on time, on target, where it's supposed to be. I like it. I like this quarterback room and what it could develop into.
For sure. I think Nebraska media and fans are going to be in for a bit of a surprise when they see how big Marcus looks next to Dylan Raiola because they are about similar size, but
Yeah.
Marcus has a couple pounds on him.
Do
Kind of
you
on
think
that. Yeah, go ahead.
you mentioned the size thing, Tim? Do you want when it relates to Dylan Raiola, do we want to see a different looking Dylan Raiola next year? Do you think it will benefit him if he sheds some pounds, if he gains some pounds? What are you seeing on that kind of
Yeah,
in
I was
that
about to ask a
category?
similar question to you because
Yeah,
I think that's a big thing this offseason for him is just
yeah,
kind of figuring out because we saw the weight kind of fluctuate between the spring and the summer. I kind of think it would be beneficial for him to kind of lean out a little bit,
yep, me too.
turn some of that kind of baby fat right now into muscle.
Hmm.
I think it's going to be a big offseason for him with Corey Campbell, make him a more effective, just kind of navigating the pocket, stepping up, being willing to run. Um, and being able to take some of these hits. He's shown he's willing to run into contact and take that contact.
Yeah.
But just prepping his body for that because it's going to be more of that. And again, with kind of Heinrich making that transition over, I think they're going to
Hmm.
lean on Dylan to do a little more in the run game as well. We've seen him be effective with it. We saw that long run, which I've
Yeah.
not seen from him at any point in his career. That level of escapability and navigating downfield. Seeing that, I wonder if we see a little more of that and a full offseason to kind of get healthy. I know he's a little banged up and specifically
Yeah.
in his lower body. Yeah, I think we see a leaned out Dylan, or
Hmm.
at least in my opinion, I think that's what should be the plan is lean out a little bit, turn some of that baby fat into muscle, um, and stick with the game plan. I was going to ask you on just on that note. Outside, we talk deep ball accuracy. We talk kind of getting away from those turnovers. Anything else you want to see him make an improvement in this offseason? Is there any two things you just want to see an improvement in?
the biggest thing is the deep ball, like we mentioned before. And I'll just go back to it again. We talked about it before, but his sliding ability, it's a very important trait to know and to learn as a quarterback in today's college football of understanding and being comfortable of when to slide, how to slide, and just being aware of the first down marker and where it is and where you need to begin your slide, because it can be dangerous for quarterbacks out there when they give themselves up. Defenders are, they want to take the quarterback out, and when opportunities present themselves, they're going to take it. And we saw that a little bit in the Boston College game. And Dylan handled it well. I think he took a shot. He got up. He got in the kid's face. I love that fire from him. I love that fire from him, and I love the offensive line coming to defend him. That's the leader, and that's what the offensive line is there to do. So, but yeah, drop some pounds, and I really think that he kind of impressed me a little bit with his scrambling ability this year. I didn't know he could do it. Marcus Satterfield didn't know either. That kind of turned into a joke midseason. But yeah, I kind of like the idea of him, getting outside of the pocket, using his legs a little bit more. But again, like, he's so important to this program. And he needs to be protected in some ways. So I don't think you want to be giving him, five carries each game or anything like that. But just in the flow of the game, if he sees yards in front of him to pick up with his legs, I think he should do it more often, is what I'm trying to say. So, but at the same time, he needs to learn to protect himself a little bit better too. And that's going to come with reps. That's going to come with game reps in the college game, because it's not easy to learn. Like we said in previous pods, he was thrown into the fire. He was playing out there. He's a true freshman. He was learning to do this college quarterback thing for the very first time. So he'll learn. He'll get better. But I think it's going to be important for him to do more with his legs next year, but also learn to protect himself more.
For sure. And I think you're going to see a new look Dylan and a confident Dylan all through spring into the season, just with Dana
Mm-hmm.
Holgerson at the helm,
Yeah.
knowing what he has at quarterback, some of the schemes he can do and the positions he can put Dylan in to be effective. Where again, like I said, there were times this year um, where the staff legitimately, I felt like, put him in uncomfortable situations, specifically when Marcus Satterfield is running the offense where, hey, he's being forced to make 3-4 reads just to
Yeah.
get a throw off, and there's pressure bearing down on him. The receivers aren't necessarily showing consistency, getting off press or being able to separate, and that didn't help. It all compounded, and we've seen in years past. We saw with Adrian Martinez over his career how
Mm-hmm.
when the situation around you is unstable and uncertain, you see a quarterback regress. We started to see that at Nebraska, and credit to Matt Rule for preventing that situation from getting even further out of hand and making that aggressive change, bringing Dana Holgerson in, and then securing Dana Holgerson for the long term. So you have a guy that has proven talent, and you've also bolstered the receiver room. Isaiah Hunter's
Yeah.
coming in,
Mm-hmm.
Dane Key's coming in,
Dane Key,
Cortez Mills is coming in.
Ja'Cory Barney, year two of Ja'Cory Barney,
Year two of Ja'Cory Barney. This room is
Jalen
going to
Lloyd.
be,
I
yep.
keep forgetting about Jalen Lloyd, but I really like that kid, and I really think that he should be playing more. But it's just, I don't know. I really think he has a high ceiling, but I just don't know what else what he needs to do to get over that hump and get more game snaps. Tim, do you have any idea? Do you have it? Can you help me
No,
out here? I'm trying
no
to.
idea. And I think that's something we can dive into for sure in the receive when we get into the receiver breakdown. But for
Yeah.
sure, want to see more Jalen Lloyd just because when you look at the roster in terms of deep threats next year, it's an Isaiah
Yeah.
Hunter, and Dane Key can do it, but he's more of that
Mm-hmm.
Jamal Banks type of a
Mm-hmm.
reliable guy across the middle and against the sideline. But yeah, I think Jalen Lloyd's your most effective deep threat in this offense, and I think they need to get more out of him. But we'll dive into that later this week in
Mm-hmm.
our receiver breakdown. We'll have a running back breakdown next, so stay tuned for that. Receivers, O line, and then we'll get to the defensive side of the ball where there's a lot to get into in terms of the changes that have happened this year. So stay tuned for all of that. We appreciate you tuning in. We'll be back with a running back episode either later today or tomorrow.